birdie in the sky dropped some whitewash in my eye. I didn't laugh, I didn't cry. I thanked the Lord that cows don't fly. That's the format of the limericks. There's another one. The bee, he is a busy soul. He has no time for birth control. And that is why in times like these, there are so many sons of bees. So you see the way they go. Now, how do they come about? Well, there is a place not too far from here called Croom, C-R-O-O-M. It's in County Limerick. And once every year, usually in the spring of the year, the poets all gathered here. Now, the Gaelic name for a poet is Fili. And in times gone by, people didn't travel. They were born in an area, lived their lives out there, died and were buried in the same area without ever exploring further than their own doorstep, as it were. And the reason for this is that they felt secure in these settlements that they were in. And outside of the settlements, there were wild people and, lots and lots of forest and trees in the early days. So there was no need for them. Where would they be travelling to anyway? So anybody that came into their area was always made very welcome. And there were three types of people that travelled throughout Ireland. One were the bards, the musicians. Second were the Shanachie. Shanachie is a Gaelic word for storyteller. And the third were the Fili, or the poets. And they were always made very welcome wherever they went because they brought news of what was happening in other parts of Ireland. Bearing in mind there was no radio, televisions, newspapers or anything like that. So when a stranger came into your area, irrespective of who he was or what he did, he was always made very welcome. And if it were one of these three categories, they were especially welcome because they would, in return for hospitality, they would entertain the household to stories of what was going on around Ireland, and the musicians would play, the bards would play music for the household, and the Shanachie would tell stories. And it was the Shanachies, the storytellers, who travelled around Ireland, especially at the time when Catholics weren't allowed to be educated. It was these travelling storytellers that handed down our folklore and our culture around a peat fire on a cold winter's night in return for the hospitality that they would receive. And then the Fili, the poets, they were the people who had the big meeting here every spring. And when all of the Fili got together, they would have a competition to see who could come up with the scruffiest limerick in the shortest possible time, or the scruffiest rhyme in the shortest possible time. And that's how they got the name Limerick became attached to them. But you will see books of Irish limericks, but don't waste your money on them. They're not worth having. You'd make them up yourself far better than anything you'd read in those books.